Hi, I'm here to give you an introduction to the interface on uh, Autodesk 3D Studio Max 2009. As you can see, here's the interface, and immediately you got these, things called steering wheels following your cursor, and what this is just a simple navigational thing that will help you move around the viewports. You're going to see these four viewports. Each of the viewports, the top, the front, the left, and the perspective, have to do with different viewing angles on the same center of the world. Okay, we're working in 3 dimensions here, and this steering wheel has to do with just another way to navigate the scene. So here we've got an orbit. If I click my mouse, I can orbit around, meaning just basically move around the object. I have a pan, which will let me go back and forth. I have a zoom, which will let me zoom into an object. Pretty neat. Then I have a rewind that'll actually bring me back in history. It's pretty cool stuff. I can move my view up and down. And also I can center and do like a kind of a walkthrough too. It's pretty neat. So I'm going to actually close my steering wheel. The other ways that you can navigate the scene are by using the view cube. And the view cube by default is in every one of your views. If you look at it and hover around it, it'll let you click on different elements of it. The ring that is around the cube will let you orbit around the cube. And by clicking on different parts of the cube, it'll let you change the view of your current viewport. It's interesting to note that although you're in perspective view, this is kind of your top-down 3-dimensional view. If you click left, it doesn't actually change your perspective view to the left view. It's completely different. So other things that you should probably note are that when you click on the home button, that'll bring you back to the default view, and more often than not, it's a pretty helpful tool. But when you're in an orthographic view, like a top view, the left, or the front, using the view cube and clicking on the next view will actually change that to the left view or the top view. Click on home will actually change it to the perspective view. So that's really helpful too. Generally I keep the view cube off because I need as much room as I can possibly get in each viewport. But if you just remember what each view starts with, if you hit T on the keyboard, it'll switch it to any view to a top view, or P to perspective, or L for left, or R for actually R is the exception, you can't go to the right view. B for bottom. Okay, or you can right click in any of the top left views. The text will let you change any of these to whatever view you want. So that's really helpful. I'm going to turn off my view cubes. So I'm going to go to View menu and go to View Cube, and I have to go to Configure, and then I need to just toggle that off. Then I'll hide those, and if I want them back, I can just go back, toggle this back on, and there's different settings in here that you can play with. Also the steering wheels, if I want those back, or if I want to change those settings too, I can basically go back into that view menu. So let me turn those off. Boom. So I'm just here to talk about the interface and nothing more, to keep this really pretty quick. The interface by default has 4 views. Each of the windows could be resized, or if you grab it right in the middle, it'll let you change these. If you right click on the text and go to Configure, just right clicking on any of the text, I can right click on top or this top, go to Configure, go to your layout. I can change this to more than just 4 views. I can kind of mix it up a little bit. If I want to get creative maybe use 3 little viewports on top and one on the bottom, and maybe I don't want a top, and a left. Maybe I want a top and a right and a left, and then a perspective on the bottom. You can just right click on any of these text and you can change this to whatever you want, and that will change this to that view that you picked. Other things as far as the interface, you can consider the whole top part of the program, all the menus. Everything that you see in a menu is more or less available in button form, okay, or in the command panel, which has several tabs. So that's really interesting. Other things to note are that the toolbars scroll, and just because you have the icons you see doesn't mean that they're all there. You can scroll this toolbar if you place your cursor in an area where your cursor turns into a hand. You can scroll back and forth. Not all toolbars are available when you first bring up the program. So to enable more toolbars, you right click on the toolbar area in an area where your hand appears, and you can enable all these extra toolbars. If I want to have extras, or I want to put snaps. If I want to snap my views, I can bring those up and I can dock them right in there, and I can do some limited reorganization, or I can bring this to the left side of my screen. So it's pretty neat. I believe at the bottom too, you can dock your toolbars down there, although I don't know why you'd want to do that. You can do that. So I'm going to close those palettes. Other things about the interface have to do with the buttons, although I'm going to go over the buttons in a later tutorial. Each of these buttons that you see a little teeny notch in the bottom right hand corner allow you to hold down your mouse, and you have many buttons under there. As far as the basic nature of the interface, generally 3D Studio Max has scrollable panels, and they're very hard to see because the scroll bar is very, very thin. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let me create a box, and then I'm going to go to my my modify panel here. Okay, and say I want to go into my render dialog just to render this out. You can see that it's very hard to see, but there's a very thin scroll bar here, and generally people miss this because it's so discrete. This is something that you need to kind of pay attention to, because you might have some extra options or something in one of your dialogues. You need to know where the scroll bar is. Also, if you bring your hand over any part of the middle of the dialog window, you'll notice that it changes from a cursor to a hand. The hand means that you can click and you can move that whole panel, basically scrolling it. So that's also kind of an I gotcha thing. And then by default, the whole interface has got a collapsible menu item. I'll just say collapsible menu types. So each place where you see a little plus means you can collapse and expand that. So, and this goes for any dialogue. It's all kind of built the same. So just know that you have all these extra options buried in there if there's a plus. For customizing the interface a little bit further, there is also preset themes that you can load up, and I'll load one up quickly to show you. It's under Customize menu, and I'm going to go to Custom UI and Default Switcher. And what this allows me to do is not only change the interface, but change the nature of how the program is going to work. Mostly without getting into any details about mental ray or anything, 3D Studio Max has got your default theme, and it'll explain, what that default theme does, what the nature or the purpose of that is. I can change my toolbars over to modular, smaller toolbars that can be easily docked around. So I can click and set that if I want. Some things will let me, tell me that I have to restart the program, so that might not work more, right now. But here we have all our toolbars appearing. I can also change it to a darker setting, which helps some people because it's very hard to look at a screen in the dark. So this, to a lot of people, is very helpful. But then there's grid settings that you have to change, so because this is a little too extreme to look at. But it's pretty cool. You can do a lot of different things. You can customize it to a very large degree. So, well, that's about it. I am going to be talking about the basic buttons in creating objects in the next tutorial.